Hello, and welcome to part 24 of West Goldfield on City Skylines 2. Now today, we see that there are a few problems, the main one being that two houses are on fire. Now, I really do think we have to move our firehouse, as this is another example of homes about to burn down because it hasn't worked. Now, if we look where it is, it's all the way over here, and this area doesn't have its own dedicated fire service. So, I think that building a fire station right here would be a pretty good idea. Now, for this one, I think we will assign it to this district. And with that said, I saw that the district is kind of a little awkward now because it isn't encompassing everything inside of it. And there we go. That should be the problem solved, and as we can see, this building collapsed. I do not think, though, that anyone died, which is pretty fortunate. Again, though, today we see that we have demand for pretty much everything, including offices, which I do want to take advantage of. I do have to say, I don't think I've ever seen an office that looks like this, and I think this one looks pretty cool. I do think an office would be pretty alright right here. And that actually didn't take away our demand fully, and as we can see that there is actually not any drawbacks to building office. So, I do want to look towards maybe a new area where we could build them. And I do want to also check our land value. And this is to see if maybe it might make sense to get rid of some of these buildings and just start building up. As we can see, compared to other areas where we have more low density businesses and offices, the land value over here is pretty high. So I'm not saying we should do this all at once, but I do think it makes sense to slowly get rid of some offices. Now, of course, I don't want to do this too fast to absolutely kill demand or get too many people unemployed, but I do think this is something that makes sense, as these larger buildings do usually have many more employees and the capacity for many more once they level up. And again, we have another fire, which I do have to say I'm surprised, as you would think that there would be less fires when it's snowing. With that said, it does seem this fire engine will get to its destination before the house is burned down. Speaking of houses, though, we know that demand for housing is higher. And as we can see, we did fix our unemployment problem. Now, before I build a few more houses, I do want to look at our college. And we can see that not quite as many people are using it. It's about 400 or 500 less. So to combat this, I do want to A, demolish these buildings so they can be rebuilt, and also build new buildings in the area. That is our housing demand gone, except for low density, which we are not going to build. Now, something worth mentioning is that it is fall and it is pretty snowy outside now. With snow means that we have to clear roads, and if we look at our road maintenance, we can see that it is not great. It's not horrible, but it definitely could use a little bit of work. So, I think that it might make sense to actually put some sort of road maintenance depot, probably in the industrial area. Now, I don't want to put one here, as because I've talked about, I would like to at least expand our port into this area. So, I think that it would probably be the best idea to place it here. Now that is making the terrain a little wonky, so I will move it over just a little bit. And I think a few trees would make it look better. Now, I do think also immediately upgrading it is going to be a good choice because demand for it is needed. I'm sorry, is there. Now, something else I want to look into is our park maintenance, which, if we check on our parks, we can see that they honestly, really honestly, are not well maintained. And I think that's going to be consistent with no matter where we get. So, I think building another park maintenance depot is going to be a good idea. The question is probably where though. Now, I think we could actually build a few, and I think one would make sense to put in the industrial area as there are quite a few parks over here. And probably just another over here as again, there's quite a few parks over here. Now, I'm not sure where exactly we'd put it, but maybe if we just expand this road down this way, that could be our answer. As we can see, this commercial building is not doing fraud anymore because it actually has enough customers to make sense that it makes this much money. Again though, demand is high, especially for offices, and we did clear out a little bit of space so we can build more offices here. And demand really is just not moving, which is a good thing. So, again, more and more buildings should be designed. And this, I think, is really just gonna transform the skyline as it will add another area of tall buildings. Now, something I didn't address on the last video, but was definitely a problem, was the amount of hearses being called, which I'm not sure if this is a traffic problem or if it is just an issue with not having enough hearses. And as we can see, the issue is with not having enough hearses, which I'm sure is somewhat related to traffic, but more hearses are really needed. Now, I do think a few hearses could be built over here. I'm sorry, not hearses, but hearse garages could be built over here, as it is within the radius. Hopefully, this fixes our issue, and we do not see a problem with this anymore. Again, though, demand is climbing, and really office demand is too. So I am going to just de-zone this whole road. We do have a little bit of space over here for buildings, so we can just build one or two in. Now again, I am still seeing a small garbage problem, but I really do think it is solving itself as not quite as many garbage trucks are being used. Now, as we can see, the processing speed is really high, and we are making a ton of power from it. It does demonstrate just how much money we can make from electric, which I think it is to the point where we could maybe reduce the service fee a little bit. Now, making power is definitely one of the better ways to make money in City Skylines II, and one of my, not favorite ways, but one of my preferred ways to do this is actually to just take a highway like this. I mean, not specifically this highway just because it's not a great example because there are homes nearby, but just take windmills and place them in between. And you can also do this with small windmills, and it does probably look better, but when I've done it before, they weren't in the game. So I am not going to do that for this highway, but I do want to keep it in mind for the future. Right, we could probably do it here, but it really just doesn't fit between the roads. Now, if we don't continue to build a ton along the highway, I think that's something we should look into. Something else that might be worth looking into in the future is as far as where we'll develop, and we are going to have to continue developing this way. But we only have this highway and this highway, which it might make sense to just take a road off here, a road off here, and kind of connect them up this way with a main road. Or it might even make sense to build another highway here. I do also just want to point out that we have a ton of money, and at this point in the game, I think it might make sense to look towards reducing taxes. Now, I think the best tax that we should reduce is probably offices, as it is our smallest moneymaker, and demand for it is really good and beneficial. Not that we don't have any, but more isn't really ever bad. There we go. We can already see just the amount of high-rise offices. It's really just transforming the whole look of the city, and I do think it's starting to look like a real city over here. Now, I really am still seeing the problem with the hearses, and I do want to hope it irons out, but I don't think it will, as we really just don't have any more space to build garages. Now, technically, we could fit one up in here, but I think that's kind of silly. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to build another crematorium. Now, I'm not really sure where I'd build it. Probably with the other services. Probably near here. Oh, wow. This is becoming an issue. But I really do think this is just moving in traffic, which doesn't make a ton of sense because people can't have cars. And I did see taxis, which makes me want to look at our taxi depot. And I think we can definitely upgrade how many taxis we have. There we go, now we have 115 taxis, which is a lot of taxis, but I think people really like their taxis. As we can see, they're already getting used up, a lot of them. Now, I do think this line shrunk a little bit, which is good. And I am seeing a few jaywalkers over here, which I am really not sure why, as we do have paths, which are, by the way, being utilized a decent amount, actually. But again, the crematorium, we do have to find a spot for it. And this time, we have to make sure that there is space for it to be upgraded. And just looking around, I really just have no clue. I mean, maybe we could build it near this one. Well, not near it, but I think it might make sense to actually build it over here. This should give enough space for upgrades too. And hopefully this is our first problem solved, and we do not continue to have problems with it. Now, of course, I do want to add a few trees. I haven't noticed until this point. Why does this tree have leaves on it still? Isn't it only pine trees? I mean, if we look at other trees too, like a oak tree, I know oak trees do not keep their leaves in the winter. Why does it have leaves? Like a pine tree I would get, but why? I think that's a bit of a problem. Anyways. Oh my goodness. That is a lot of people waiting for hearses. And again, like, a lot of hearses from here are being used. Anyways, I think we can continue to expand our office area. And again, office demand is just being cranked to the absolute, which I really do just have to say the game patch really helped with. Now, I do have to say, this office does look really nice, and I do think I will actually utilize the historical button for the first time, as I really do just love the whole look of this office, as it is also pretty tall. I mean, that seriously barely did a thing to our office demand, which, I mean, I'm really just not sure. I mean, the taxes really changed how much demand we have, but again, Skyline is really being defined by offices right now, which I do think it would continue to make sense to build more high density in this area, especially around the college. Now, something I'm noticing is like directly around the college, we are seeing that there are just buildings, not really homes, which is going to be inherent as you do need to have college, the actual college, the college library, tram station, a few parks, and parking. Which, speaking of, I have to say, not as many people parked as I thought they would, which I do have to say is pretty nice. With that said, I do like the idea of adding greenery to the area, so I will put a little bit of it on the roads with some trees. And again, our demand really is pretty high. And I was able to fit one low rent housing unit there, which I do want to again look towards services that we have. And as we can see, there are nowhere near enough mailboxes in this area. And there we go. That should be good on the front of mail for now. But I do want to also look at our internet coverage, which actually, I'm surprised, it is holding up. Especially because of how many offices we have built. Again, I do want to check on our crematorium. And as we can see, it technically doesn't need more vehicles, but I do want to add just one more hearse garage. And that should be good for now on that front. And again, demand really is not going away for anything. So I will continue to get rid of offices. Now, something I would like to maybe see from the game is medium density offices, because it doesn't make a ton of sense to have this many high-rise offices here. And it would probably make sense as a natural progression for offices to go to medium density and then high density, as this is more realistic and can be seen in a lot of cities too. Something else I can see is traffic is not alright here. There is just... oh, it's locked up because of a tram. Interesting. Hopefully that solves itself and does not keep happening. Because that was also another fix with the recent patch, that trams and buses did not get stuck at their stops. Now that these buildings have gone, I will build more offices. And there we go. That is a lot more buildings made, and hopefully that should be our office demand. Good enough for now. Now, something else I would like to do is maybe like diversify where we have our offices. Because now that this area has grown so large, it might make sense to have a few offices inside of the walkable city. Now, of course, I would probably want to still put them near the road so that people who, say, come from over here or over here will still be able to park and go to work. Now, I think the first place I would like to build an office over here is probably going to be along here. Now, of course, I do want to maintain the idea of having buffer zones. Now, unfortunately, this did affect this building here, and I'm not sure if I will be able to save it. And it looks like I cannot. Of course, I'm not going to force it to go, as that was not my intention, but when it does, I will probably build another building there. Now in this area, I do want to have smaller office buildings rather than larger ones. Now, I am seeing that there is just a traffic backup because a car is making a U-turn. Now, I'm really not sure why there is a backup, but hopefully it does just resolve with time. Again, something I am seeing is just the insane amount of people using this bridge. Just a line of people going over here to this tram. Which, speaking of this tram, it's like beyond capacity. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, this one station has so many trams trying to go towards it and so many people. Over 5,000 people waiting for their trams. To the point where I think it might just make sense to start putting subway stations. Because that's really just insane. I don't think I have ever seen anything like that with a tram system. So I think that's what we'll do next time, is maybe convert the tram system to a subway system, because the cars also are able to hold, like, I think 1,080 people, which is much more than, like, the 280. Now, I do also want to connect this this walkway over to this road, just because it would make maybe walking a little faster. Now, the road did get a little messed up from that, so I did decide to rebuild the offices. Now, over here, I do want to place another high-density hub. I did also add this park. It is a restaurant, which I think is pretty cool to have in a walkable city, just a restaurant that also is a park and a site for people to go to. I did also finish putting down our high-density businesses, and as we can see, our population has grown an insane amount. I believe this video might have actually just been by 10,000 people. Not quite, but over 6,000 people still, which is a pretty huge amount. Now, we can see that this high school is full, and I do just want to check on the rest of our high schools. And of course, our elementary schools. Something else I would like to do in the future is probably build an elementary school over in this area, because we do have enough capacity, but the elementary schools are here and here. This elementary school remains full, but I'm not sure where I would... Oh no, I already have another one. Okay, so that's fine, and then for high schools, we're not looking too great over here. So, another high school is going to... Oh no, I built another one over here. Why am I forgetting this? Okay, the high schools are actually fine. And we can see that some of our offices are actually finishing being built. And I think they actually look pretty nice and add a good amount of function to the city. Now I do also want to check on our post offices because we are not seeing a huge mail problem, but we are seeing a mail problem. Also, we need to place some mailboxes over in the industrial area. Now something I want to mention is when we expand our subway, I do definitely want to put a station here, and probably a station here that will function like a triangle and maybe even expand over here. And then we'll add more routes going this way. Now, again, demand is really just climbing really high. And I'm really just not sure where to continue building. But, again, I think we definitely have 2 spaces here for buildings. And we are just running out of space closing in on this area. High density demand is gone, which leaves us with medium density demand to figure out. Again, I do really like the idea of row houses in a walkable city, just because they have decent density, and their biggest problem is the amount of cars they spawn, which, it's a walkable city, there are no cars. And again, this bridge in the distance really does just add a bit of character to the city. Now, eventually, once the city grows and expands a bit more, I do want to add another bridge, which I would probably take from probably there, take an intersection of the highway here, take it like this, bring it over here, and probably connect it to the highway, and have some exits probably on this road here, because it is our main road. Now, of course, that's a long time away, but I do just want to keep it in mind so that we don't build a ton. Something else I think I want to do is buy a few zoning tiles, which they are pretty expensive with a good amount of upkeep, but they have a ton of oil in them, which is going to be useful. As again, I do have the Bridges and Ports DLC. We can actually use this oil. Now, additionally over here, I do want to check on which way the wind is blowing, and it is blowing this way, which means we can actually build a few oil fields over here. Now, as oil in the game is not a renewable resource, we will eventually get rid of these oil fields. Maybe not even before all the oil is gone, but when it isn't making as much oil. Now, of course, I do want to utilize offshore oil too, because there really just is a ton of it in this map, as I do believe this is a Bridges and Ports map. No, I don't think it is, but still has a ton of it. Now, for offshore oil collection, there are a few things that need to be done. One of the first ones is giving the place some tanks to store the oil. 90 tons should be sufficient, but I think we can give it a few more. Then what you need to do is actually take the oil harbor pier, and you have to take it off of here, and you have to make it long enough until you see the ship lanes. Once you see those ship lanes, you can actually get different kinds of oil platforms. If you want the smaller one, what you can actually do is just take pipes and connect it directly up to here. But if you want more and larger oil collection, you will have to actually connect them with a boat. Now, I did accidentally just place the wrong one, but you take it like this, and you can see that it actually has a good amount of area. Now, it can be a little glitchy, a little finicky, but it actually isn't too bad usually. Then what you have to do is take this and just connect it up to where your oil platforms are. And then what you can do is not make the mistake I made and make this too short. Rebuild it, make it long enough for both that and for the workers and these little stations to appear. Then what you can do is click on it, and like a bus route or really any other route, just bring it on along. Now you can also, I believe, adjust the amount of, not the amount, but the size of the ships, and I think we should go with a super tanker, just because there are a ton of these in the water. And now, we should no longer have a deficit for oil once this all kicks in. Because right now we actually have, I believe it is our biggest deficit for a raw material. So, I don't think that's actually true for the processing capacity, because over here, it should make a ton more. Now, just so we get rid of these indicators, I will take it and connect it. And I do just want to double check to see what our production capacity is, which I still really do not think that's true. As we can see, this one oil field makes that much. I mean, seriously, what is going on? That's not even kilotons, we're not even making oil right now, it says, which is just probably a glitch. But, who knows. With that said though, we did get a ton done in this video, as we built a ton of offices over here, decided to build a few offices over here, and we built our oil collection facilities. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and I really want to thank you for watching through the whole thing. It really means a lot. In the meantime, if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them down below, and have yourself a great day.